candidates. We do, however, after careful study, take positions on political issues. The League invites anyone who is interested in government and politics and serving the community to join us. We do have some membership brochures out in the lobby. The format for today's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to make an opening statement. Next, the candidates will respond to questions from our audience. And if you have any questions, please write them on an index card that hopefully you picked up at the front. If you don't have any index cards, if you want to raise your hands, somebody will make sure you get one. If you have one that you want to turn in, wave it, and one of our volunteers will pick it up. We will be reviewing the questions for appropriateness and to avoid duplication. Then each candidate will have 2 minutes now to respond to each question. And then finally, the candidates will each have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. In the interest of time and decorum, I ask our audience to hold all applause until the end of the forum, and please silence your cell phones. Now I'd like to introduce the candidates who are running for Roseville City Council. First, we have Susan Rohan, Tim Herman, and Renee Aguilera. Thank you for joining us tonight. So now we'll go ahead with the opening statements, and we'll begin with Ms. Rohan.
Thank you very much.
Make sure the sound is good. Thank you very much for the privilege to serve you as Vice Mayor and Mayor for the last 4 years. It's been a real honor. I don't consider serving on the City Council a personal accomplishment. I consider it a responsibility. It's a responsibility to represent the community, to serve residents who have challenges in dealing with the city and helping them resolve issues, and making sure that our community grows in a positive way with a strong economy. As a longtime resident with a family and a small business, I understand the need and support for strong public safety. I want us to deliver qualified, satisfied development for our community that brings good jobs and supports a good economy. I know the importance of maintaining affordable utilities for our community, and I insist that we continue to work on our traffic congestion. And I share our community's desire to have a beautiful park system and libraries that are open when we want to use them. To accomplish those things, a council member has to have a diverse background and not be a single issue individual. I understand the city's budget process and the fiscal process. I have long private sector background in planning and experience now as an elected official. I learned our utility issues as a city commissioner, and now also dealing with those issues as your council member. I seek out public input and want to take this opportunity to thank RCONA for always being available to provide me with input when I was looking at issues that were coming before us on the council. I do my homework, I listen to people, and I'm used to dealing with problems, and I look for solutions that are consistent with our community's values and in keeping with the vision that we have for Roseville, that it be a well-planned, well-managed community with a bright future. I support universities coming to Roseville and South Placer. I support using one-time monies to increase our revenues to make us more resilient the next time the economy takes a dive. I support public investment, smart public investment in our downtown to attract private sector investment. And I want to see our property tax and sales tax revenues increase. I respect this community and the council that you assembled to do your business, and it would be my honor to serve another 4 years. Thank you.
Dr. Herman?
Good evening. I am Tim Herman, and I've been living in Roseville for about 22 years. I've been married to my wife Pam for 31, and our daughter Jocelyn went through the public school system here, so I'm well invested in the city. I've been honored to serve on the Parks and Rec Commission for 10 years, In that time, we opened 30 parks in the city of Roseville. And for the last 4 years, I've been serving as council member on the city council. And I'm very proud of the things we've accomplished and things we plan to accomplish going forward. In that time, we instituted community policing, and that has helped crime rate drop every year since we've been here. The number of calls into suspicious people to the police department has gone up. That doesn't happen without a good partnership between the neighborhood associations and our police department. That trust has been built over the last 4 years, and it continues to help Roseville become the safe community that we have. Neighborhood parks are something that is critical to the quality of life, and we have over 70 parks right now. We've developed 8 in the last 4 years in such a difficult time. We've got 7 more planned for next year. And the way we keep our communities, our neighborhood associations, and neighborhoods healthy is to stay fit, be out in those parks, and use them on a regular basis. In the last 4 years, I've been involved in attracting higher education to the city limits and to South Placer County. We've got an MOU signed between Sierra College, University of the Pacific, Sac State, Brandon University, and William Jessup to have a university center in the downtown. We're also now working on a specific plan, Placer Ranch, that will bring a Sac State Extension campus to Roseville. That size of that campus will be the same as the current Sac State campus is in Sacramento. Someday to grow up to be maybe CSU Roseville. I'm very honored to be a city council member. I look forward to working for the next 4 years to continue the process we've made in redeveloping our downtown, attracting higher education, and increasing the number of good paying jobs we have in the city of Roseville. We are a net importer of jobs, and we continue to look forward to doing that. In the last 5 years, we've added over 5,000 jobs to the city. So again, I want to thank you for the privilege of being here and being a council member. I look forward to being on council for another 4 years. Thank you.
Mr. Aguilera?
Hello, my name is Renee Aguilera, and I am a people person. I have been an elected official of a school board for the last 12 years. I represent a whole segment of Roseville residents that don't feel they have a say or know anyone on the city council. I was born and raised in Roseville and believe I can add diversity to the council at a time when it really needs it. I am a policy wonk, having graduated from UC Davis in political science, public service. In my last election, I received 30,000 votes, and I am a known name in Roseville, Renee Aguilera, having been born and raised here. Some of my priorities, if elected, would be public safety. A safe community by providing the best police, fire protection, and emergency health services for our residents and businesses. Utilities and services. Maintaining and improving our utilities and services, maintaining low cost and reliable services which are essential to economic development and citizen well-being. And I will ensure we have a safe water supply, parks, and open space of all our residents. Revitalization. I want to continue the effort with revitalization, if elected, of Roseville's older areas to minimize blight and encourage private investment. Quality of life. I would like, if elected, to continue to provide for and increase new businesses in Roseville with emphasis on quality jobs so people can afford to work, live, and play in Roseville. I also want to emphasize target industries like green energy, healthcare, and higher education. Traffic relief, and improve and expand our transportation and roadway systems with an emphasis on providing more opportunities for alternative transportation options like public transit, bicycling, and walking to make Roseville a more pedestrian-friendly city. And finally, fiscal responsibility. I want to promote strict standards of financial oversight and public accountability of city government. If elected, and all I need is one vote, because there's 2 positions open, I just need your one vote. I propose to implement this by doing my homework and asking questions of staff and ask for periodic updates to our processes and procedures. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for questions from our audience. And I know some of you have already answered this question a little bit in your opening statement, but I think it bears repeating. We'll begin with Ms. Rohan. Why are you running for City Council? And if elected, what are the priority areas you intend to concentrate on in the near term?
My priority for running for city council is to make sure that there's someone on the council who will return telephone calls to residents who have issues with their government. I don't believe that I work for City Hall. I believe I work for this community. My priorities as far as actions that I would take on the council would continue to be working for fiscal responsibility in the development of our budgets, and to make sure that we don't take shortcuts in our planning process. We have a formula that has worked well for our community, and it's not one that I intend to deviate.
Dr. Herman?
I'm running for re-election because I think I have some skills that can help us get to the future and in a productive and positive way. I think the skills that I have from owning a dental practice and running a small business in town and in Lincoln for the last 25 years give me some different ways to look at things to help us and provide a different perspective on the council. My priorities has been economic development, higher education, and revitalizing downtown, along with improving our police department's perception, and that has happened. I think we're continuing to work with the Chief Hahn. You know, I believe that the City Council is a policy board, and we have two employees, the city manager and the city attorney. The rest, we hire them to run the city. They follow all our policy, and the way I see it, they've done a really good job the last 4 years.
Mr. Aguilera?
Again, I would like to emphasize my priorities: public safety, utilities and services, revitalization, quality of life, traffic relief, and fiscal responsibility. If I would have ran 2 years ago, the most pressing issue would have been vacant buildings. And we still have some vacant buildings in Roseville. So there are some eyesores and other targets of vandalism. Traffic is always a concern for most residents and businesses. While we've spent millions of dollars on revitalization, economic progress of private construction has been slow. The turnaround coming out of the Seawell Tunnel is taking forever. My Folsom Road Neighborhood Association neighbors tell me every day, what was the council thinking? Over the past years, another issue was, of course, those vacant buildings like Sammy Hager's. Luckily, the Sons have taken over his pub, and with the Monk cellar coming in, we are now on track to move more commerce downtown, which is one of the goals of the Roseville Chamber of Commerce, of which I'm a Roseville Chamber of Commerce graduate of their leadership program. Other pressing priorities include developing creative and workable plans for youth, families and seniors around entertainment, culture, public art, railroad heritage projects, parks, athletic fields, balancing the city budget, and developing our general plan 2020 that enhances our quality of life, business interests, and green guidelines. Thank you.
Okay, for our next question, we'll begin with Dr. Herman. If you could do one creative thing that's new in or for the city, what would it be?
We'd get a theater downtown that we could have independent films in.
Okay. Mr. Aguilera?
I was an at-large director of the Roseville Coalition Neighborhood Association back in the year 2000 to about 2005, culminating with a national neighborhood concerns conference in Sacramento, which attracted 1,200 citizens from 40 different states. If elected, I would ask that staff give monies to each neighborhood association so they could go to these neighborhood concerns conferences and be better involved in civic responsibility.
Ms. Roman?
If I could think of one creative thing to do for the city, it would be to find a way to have our chambers full every time we have a meeting, and to have this room filled tonight with people who are interested in the folks who are offering to provide leadership for their city.
Okay, for our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Aguilera. Planned projects could increase city population to over 200,000 people, mostly in the West and North Roseville areas. Residents have expressed concerns about increased traffic and crime rates and water shortages. Do you agree with increased density, and what efforts would you take to address the concerns of the residents?
City growth should be governed by the general plan, where impacts on traffic, utilities, and quality of life are evaluated in the environmental income report. In the EIR. Any rezone should be made carefully. Should have full input from the community. How I see growth in the city of Roseville, and right now, if you go down Interstate 65, it says we have 65,000 people in Roseville. If you go down Interstate 80, it says we have 126,000 people in Roseville. I would venture to say that we probably have 150,000 people in Roseville every day, because most people can't afford to live in Roseville, but they can work in Roseville because they get because there's good paying jobs and good jobs that are from the Galleria and in the hospital industry. So I would say growth should be balanced, housing, commercial, and industrial, so that way the jobs that we bring in, those impacts, especially of traffic, will be minimized, and that we can get revenue from the tax base to provide for the services that we are accustomed to. So growth should pay its own way and not rely on existing residents to pick up the tab. We were at a forum with the Chamber of Commerce last Friday, and someone mentioned at a Rotary that the city manager thought there was going to be 300,000 up to 500,000 people in Roseville. I do not agree with that. I agree with steady growth, and if that's going to happen, then we should have another city that's going to be west of Fittiman be organized.
Ms. Rohan?
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. Planned projects could increase city population to over 200,000 people, mostly in the West and North Roseville areas. Residents have expressed concerns about increased traffic and crime rates and water shortages. Do you agree with increased density, and what efforts would you take to address the concerns of the residents?
There's multiple questions built into that, and I want to take them one at a time. First of all, the planning is done that is consistent with our general plan. Every time an application is received by the city, it is thoroughly reviewed by independent consultants who prepare environmental impact reports for the public, able to review and make recommendations and express their concerns to decision makers at our commissions and at the city council. That's a process that has worked well for Roseville in the past, and it's a process that will carry us forward in the future. The question about water shortage is one that is complicated to answer in a 2-minute time frame, but I want to assure you that the city of Roseville has a full water palette, and as we develop our plans and approve them at the city council level, there are exhaustive discussions and analysis of the adequate amount of water that's available. The water shortages that we're experiencing now have been imposed at the state level and also related to what has happened with the water supply that is surface related with the Folsom Reservoir. This council has made it an absolute clear message to the staff that failure is not an option to deal with our plumbing issues with Folsom, and we have successfully dealt with some of the issues that created the shortage last year. This drought may continue, but you can be sure that this council is on top of this issue. Thank you.
Dr. Herman?
I think the one question nobody's talked about and answered is density. In our planning process, there is a wide variety of housing products. There's high density, very high density, medium density, and all of those things go into a specific plan that creates the neighborhoods that we have. And I think Roseville has done a really good job over the years of creating that. And so there are walking neighborhoods there. Yes, there's drivers. We live in the suburbs. We try to follow the SACOG blueprint for housing, and there's housing numbers. We have to have a number of affordable housing. So all of that, I think, is in the planning process that Susan mentioned. That's very detailed. Development has to pay for their own way. They cannot cause any negative impact to the budget of the city. Traffic is something that comes with growth. I think Roseville has done a great job over the years of planning for that traffic. When we moved into our neighborhood, the Galleria wasn't open yet, but there were 6-lane roads waiting for us to be there. The Galleria opened. We still get through there without any problem. We just have more company on the roads now as people come to shop at our amazing Galleria and the fountains in Roseville. Water shortage is definitely something that we're all concerned about. Again, as Susan said, we're very in tune with what's happening. We're working with our regional partners to make sure that the water contracts that we have, that we continue to get that water. Other things that some of the plants coming in will help to, like Placer Ranch, getting water from a different source than from Folsom Lake to help stabilize our water sources. We're also looking at getting water potentially from the Sacramento River through the water bond to help us so that we're not so dependent on Folsom Lake.
Okay, for our next question, we'll begin again with Ms. Rohan. Please give us 3 reasons why we should vote for you.
Well, I think that the primary thing is that when you call and ask for something to be taken care of, I will follow through. I think that that is one of the things that has made Roseville such a delightful place to live. I've lived here for 26 years, and I want to have council people who are responsive to residents. I also think that it's important for you to have people who are on the council who have experience in dealing with budgets and are accustomed to having to solve problems and look for solutions that will work well for the community. I also want to assure you that I do my homework, and I don't think that you want to have people who are making decisions on nearly $500 million budget without having done their homework and listened to the community.
Dr. Herman?
I think you should vote for me because I've got experience on the council, I've got experience in the city of Roseville, and you can see what I've done. I've got a record to follow, and you can do that. I'm here, I'm going to do everything I can for the whole city. I'm not looking out for one piece of Roseville. I'm here representing all of the citizens of Roseville and getting input from anybody that I need to make an informed decision that what's going to be the best thing for the city of Roseville. And lastly, I can guarantee that I'm never going to be outworked, and I've got more energy than anybody to make sure that we get what we need and what we deserve as citizens of Roseville.
Mr. Aguilera?
Yes, the 3 reasons why you should vote for me is because I have the most experience as an elected official. I've been on the school board of either elementary or high school for the past 12 years. I also have 12 years of negotiating, bargaining with not only teachers but with classified, so the certified and classified staff. And lastly, I'm a policy wonk. I worked 20 years for the state of California as a contracts analyst, so I know what it means to analyze contracts and to look at them. And obviously, as a city council member, you need to look at contracts and you need to bargain. And I have that experience. Thank you.
Okay, for our next question, we'll begin with Dr. Herman. Roseville is a diverse city with a variety of neighborhoods, ranging from established neighborhoods in central Roseville to brand new neighborhoods in the west, north, and east side. How do these city segments differ, and how would you address the needs and requirements of each?
Well, as you said, they're very different. It's just in their age. We have new neighborhoods that are popping up today. We have them that are 5 years old. We've got them that are 100 years old. And each neighborhood has their own needs. I think the park system helps to draw people in. We make sure that we are maintaining our old parks. And that comes from the general fund, so we have to make sure we put money away for that. The new parks in town come with not only recycled water, but also with facility districts to help pay for them and maintain them going forward. So I think each neighborhood has its own little thing that they have to deal with. The neighborhood associations, keeping in contact with them, with the city departments to make sure that what's happening, if they need something, if there's crime, that we make sure we have our police department out there and visible and partnering with the neighbors to make sure that we're cleaning up any problems And I think those are the two big things, is knowing that we have a partnership with City Hall, the Police Department, Parks and Rec, and the neighborhood associations.
Mr. Aguilera?
As a former director at large of the Roseville Coalition of Neighborhood Associations, I've been to most of the meetings in neighborhoods, from Crestmont to Kirby Hills, to the Blue Oaks Neighborhood Association, to my own to my own Folsom Road Neighborhood Association, to Files. Roseville, as you know, has close to about 130,000, and in those, there's about 26 neighborhoods. Out of that, about 20 of them are active. If elected to the city council, I would be the activator. I would be the one that not only wants to give money, because we do pay taxes and we do want to have some revenue streaming back to the neighbors because of revitalization, so we continue the effort of Roseville's older areas to minimize blight and encourage private investment in those areas, to the new areas, which are west of Fitiment, which are the beautiful homes. I only thought Beverly Hills had 7 and 10 car garages, but where we're going to put a sixth high school on Bob Doyle Drive, JMC Home says 7 and 10 car garages. So we have a lot of have and have-nots in our neighborhoods, the 26 neighborhoods that we have. I live in the Folsom Road Neighborhood Association. It's one of the oldest neighborhoods in Roseville. My parents came here in the 1940s. There were only 4 one-way streets in Roseville: South Lincoln, Park, Nevada, and the street I live in on Donner. So bottom line is, I know the neighborhood. I did a 2005 conference, which came to Sacramento. Over 1,200 neighbors from 40 different states were here. And we actually had 2 tours from the city of Roseville that came to Roseville from Sacramento, so that way people could see how great Roseville is.
Ms. Rohan?
I love this question. Roseville is very diverse, and it's becoming more so. All you have to do is go to one of the elementary schools and see the students. And that diversity is going to make the experience for our students and for the people who live here more interesting and provide more variety and perspective on civic affairs and social affairs. One of the things, I've lived on the east side of the freeway for 26 years. One of the things that I've heard so many times from people throughout the years is that all of the focus and attention from the city seems to be on the new development that's happening on the west side, simply because that's where development can happen in our community. And I've really taken that to heart and thought about why that's happened. All of the activity in the new areas has to happen through permits and applications that get processed through our commissions and the city council. Our built neighborhoods get reinvested in not only through the neighborhood associations communicating with the city on the things that you want to have in your neighborhoods, but also in a very important budgeting process that we do. We as a council decide how we're going to invest public funds in our built neighborhoods. I want to see more code enforcement. I want to see more tools for neighborhoods to be able to achieve more things that they want to see happen in their neighborhood. I want to see Roseville feel good about itself in every neighborhood in our community, and I'm really committed to working on that. Thank you.
Okay, for our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Aguilera. I think the city should be divided into 5 districts as soon as possible. What is your opinion?
Well, if that was the case, I would have gotten elected in the year 2000. In the year 2000, there was a initiative, but the citizens of Roseville voted it down. Now we go to 2014, which is 14 years ago, and the Assembly has a bill that passed, but it did not pass in the Senate. And the bill said that if you have a population of over 100,000 people, you must go to district elections. And the reason why is because there's some, and in our case, Gilbert Durant, who's in this audience, he wasn't elected since he was elected in 1972. That's about 40-something years ago. And so we need to have a diverse student. We need to have not only what Susan said about having diverse students, Because in the schools of Roseville, we have over 42 languages that are spoken, but we need to have also a diverse council. And so I would definitely be for district elections. It probably won't be voted on by the citizens of Roseville because in the year 2000, 14 years ago, it was voted down. But by the year 2016, I'm sure that there'll be district elections in Roseville, and it'll probably be voted on by the Senate, as it's already been voted on by the Assembly.
Ms. Rohan?
I've lived in a city that had districts. I lived in Bakersfield for about 10 years. And I used to have to attend the council meetings, and I watched chaos most of the time. There were factions on the council that punished some of the districts that were not able to be a part of that faction, and the entire community suffered for it. There weren't even decisions about how parks were going to be developed. There weren't even decisions about how policing was going to occur in that city. There was not a common emphasis on maintaining infrastructure, and I think it would be very negative for this community, and I do not support it.
Dr. Herman?
I mentioned that earlier, that I'm not in favor of districts for Roseville. And I'm really not in favor of it coming from the state telling us we have to do that. If that's something that ever happens in Roseville, it should be something that the citizens of Roseville vote on, not coming from the state government. I think the worst thing that could happen to the city of Roseville right now, with all the positive things we have going, would just start cutting Roseville up into pieces and people fighting for their piece of Roseville. Right now, I can honestly say that the 5 council members look at every decision at what's best for the city of Roseville, not what's best for one piece of Roseville. And I think that's what would happen if we went to district elections, and I'm adamantly against them.
For our next question, we'll begin with Ms. Rohan. What do you think the value of neighborhood associations is? How can we best serve the city?
I think that neighborhood associations are a wonderful asset for the city. It provides a very quick and convenient way for a council member to find out what a particular neighborhood issue might be or what a take on a proposal is. So I really like having that communication. The other thing that I've noticed, it isn't so much a benefit to the city, but it's a benefit to neighbors. In order to really feel good about yourself and your community, it is so important to have a network of people, of friends in your neighborhood who celebrate your birthdays with you and your kids' graduations. And that's the kind of strength that really builds neighborhoods, and it is the truest and best asset for the neighborhood associations. And I love to see them thrive. Thank you.
Dr. Herman?
I think our neighborhood associations are a great asset. I see emails coming through all the time. Somebody's lost a dog, so it's communication to help find somebody's pet, to help alert if there's something going on. The partnerships that as I've mentioned, that they've got with the police department and the cops that are on the beat, being proactive rather than reactive. I think it's something that we need to continue, and as we get new neighborhoods and create new neighborhood associations, and figure out ways to get the ones that aren't active right now. And one of the things that happens in a city that things are running pretty well, a lot of times you don't have neighbors wanting to get involved. What do I need to get together for? So we need to figure out a way for positive things, and when things are positive, still to get people active and create, continue to create and have a prospering neighborhood association.
Mr. Aguilera?
Yes, I'm a big advocate of neighborhoods, not just in Roseville, but in Citrus Heights and Sacramento, all over the United States. If elected to the City Council, again, I would ask staff to be more involved with the RCONA. They used to be more involved in Santa in the park. They used to be more involved in, barbecues and other events. But they need to spend, the city of Roseville needs to spend more money in the neighborhoods themselves, and especially in associations. I know of some cities in Southern California that actually give $5,000 and $10,000 grants to cities to help them organize. I would definitely be for that. Also, when I've gone to the Neighborhood Concerns USA conference, or NUSA conference, which by the way, I was on their national board of directors for 3 years, whereby it culminated again by having the NUSA USA Conference in Sacramento, California in 2005 with 1,200 residents from 40 different states, including Japan and Mexico and Canada. We learned about professional development. I also went to Neighborhoods USA in Baton Rouge, in Houston, in Pittsburgh, in North Hollywood. And the city of Roseville used to give a stipend for people to go to this conference. Baton Rouge, Louisiana gives $30,000 for residents of their city to go to professional development conferences. I'm a big proponent of neighborhoods, and if elected, I will definitely ask for money to give back to the neighborhood since we are all taxpayers.
For our next question, we'll begin with Dr. Herman. I think when there is a council vacancy, the runner-up at the last election should be appointed. What is your opinion?
Well, we've had that in the past, and the first loser, I think it was called the last time it was brought up to me, it said they should be put in. I think if we have a vacancy on the council, it's really expensive to have a special election, so I would recommend that people apply to the 4 remaining council members, and then the council should appoint that person. You know, the argument was, well, what if you ran and you got it was 2 people and you got the 3rd most votes? Well, what happens if you only got 5% of the votes? Should you be put in? So I think it should definitely be put by the current council. They were elected by the city at large to make these difficult and strategic decisions, and so that person would be appointed and then have to run at the next election.
Mr. Aguilera?
Yes, I think that would be a great idea. Jack Wallace, he would have been appointed because someone might have left the council and he was like right out of third or fourth place, depending upon what year he ran. If there was 2 positions open or 3 positions open. Also, Phil Osnick would have been appointed. I would have been appointed. One time I took 4th place when they were 3 positions. So I think that's a good idea. I think that the citizen of Roseville has spoken in this race. There's 4 people. I wish Yuri would have been here because he is a great candidate. And I think amongst us 4, it's probably going to take about 20 to 30% to win. So if someone gets appointed, which I think it's happened probably out of the last 10 years 6 times, it should have been probably the person which Tim said was the loser, but they're not really the loser because they were trying to run and they were trying to represent Roseville. So I think it's a good idea to do that.
Ms. Rohan?
Our charter provides guidance and the rules, and I will support what is in our charter until we have another charter review commission, and that's a citizens-based group. I believe that government belongs to the community, and let the community make that decision and bring it to the council for consideration on a ballot. This is something that the public should decide.
For our next question, we'll begin with Mr. Aguilera. Why should the city encourage large higher education institutions, colleges, and universities to relocate or set up a branch campus here?
Well, as a graduate at the University of California, Davis, I believe in higher education. I think that Placer County has probably one of the highest educated communities that there is. That's why that when the voters are going to get that ballot anytime after October 10th, and again, please vote for Renee Aguilera. You have 2 votes, vote for me. They're going to vote. They're going to vote within 72 hours. The election's going to be over probably by October 15th. This is a very educated community. So, when you're talking about universities, we need to talk to our Placer County supervisors. Any proposal that has now been on the table has been out of our sphere of influence. If there's going to be a Tessopolis, university or some type of university from out there, it's not going to be in the city of Roseville. It's out of our influence. So either the city council has to access more land, or it's not going to be in our sphere of influence. We need to talk to Jack Duran, our supervisor, of course, Mr. Wygant from Lincoln, Mr. Holmes, and Mr. Montgomery and Mr. Euler, because any of those universities that are going to be here are going to be out of our sphere of influence. And it's great that, some of the city council members went all the way to South Africa and, spent $60,000 to go, but they need to talk to our Placer County supervisor, and they should start talking to our supervisor, Jack Duran, to try and get into that sphere of influence.
Ms. Rohan?
Well, first of all, Renee, we went to South Africa to talk with an investor about making a contribution to a hotel conference center. I wanted to make that clarification. I support universities coming to Roseville and South Placer because they not only will afford local and less expensive education for our young families here in Roseville and South Placer, but they're also job generators, and they're high quality jobs for our community. And it's the kind of good growth that we like to attract to our community. If you think about universities, they're very similar to our hospitals, operating 24/7. They provide job opportunities and a great strength from an economic development standpoint.
Dr. Herman?
So as chairman of the Higher Education Task Force, we studied initially, as soon as we got on the council, the need in Roseville and South Placer County. And that task force came up with there's severe need for comprehensive universities in our area. And that didn't mean just Roseville. And yes, there is a campus proposed just west of the city limits at this point in some land that's being donated. They're working with the University of Warwick out of the United Kingdom, and they're doing their due diligence to see if it's going to work for them. We also have the Placer Ranch subdivision and specific plan that is being proposed, and those developers have asked to be annexed into the city. And of that, as I said, 300 acres is going to be a Sac State Extension campus. A campus of about 10,000 students will generate about $1 billion a year to